Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're jumping straight into a deeply fascinating, highly structured philosophical framework by an author named Xuefeng. Now, this isn't just a minor tweak to how we view the world. This framework completely from the ground up redefines mortality, consciousness, and what actually happens when we die. So whether you're just dipping your toes into these concepts for the first time, or you're already deeply immersed in esoteric philosophy, this breakdown is going to give you a super direct look into a genuinely unique worldview.
Right off the bat, let's challenge everything you think you know about the end of life. We're going to act as your neutral but absolutely fascinated guides through all of this. Because the central question we're tackling today is just profound. What if death, exactly as we perceive it, is literally just a trick of our own limited perspective?
To really get our heads around Xuefeng's premise, we have to start with this brilliant metaphor right out of the text. Morning bacteria have no idea of the first and last days of months. Cicadas are unaware of spring and fall. I mean, think about it. If a bacteria is born in the morning and dies in the evening, how could it possibly comprehend the concept of night, let alone a whole month? And if a cicada only lives through the warm summer months, it has absolutely no concept of the turning seasons.
And this perfectly captures how we operate. Much like those insects living blissfully unaware of the broader timeline of the Earth, we humans make a massive fundamental error. Because we generally can't see the past before we were born or the future after we pass away, we end up measuring the entire length of life, and we're talking life with a capital L here, against our extremely transient temporary physical existence. We mistake the death of our physical carrier for the death of life itself.
Which brings us to our first major concept, the illusion of death, and redefining mortality as a conversion. So, if death isn't actually the end, then what is it? Well, the crucial point here is that, according to this framework, life never actually dies. Life and death, exactly as we know them, are just false appearances. When someone passes away, we are merely watching the disappearance of the carrier of life, not the life itself. The text insists that the only actual issue at play here is conversion. Life is simply undergoing a process of conversion from one state, or one space, directly into another.
Okay, so moving on to the three directions of conversion. Where exactly does life go?
If death is just a conversion, where do we actually convert to? The text maps out three very distinct destinations. If your conversion takes you in a downward direction, say to the plant world, the animal world, hell, or what the text vividly calls the frozen or inflamed layers, that is considered true death. Now, if you move horizontally, which means transmigrating right back into the human world as another person, Xuefeng terms this half-death. But if you proceed upward toward realms like the 1,000-year world, the 10,000-year world, or the Celestial Islands continent, that upward conversion is considered true life. Let's dig into the vehicle and the driver, unpacking the physical and the spiritual. To make this abstract concept a whole lot more relatable, Xuefeng introduces an everyday metaphor. Imagine you're standing at a bustling dock or a train station. People are constantly yelling things like, "Look, the ship is coming," or "the train is arriving." We naturally attribute the action to those massive metal objects. But deep down, we all know those vehicles aren't moving themselves, right? They don't have their own independent will to just get up and travel.
This text compares our physical bodies directly to those vehicles. Our bodies are mere vessels. They're just structures of energy and matter that are entirely motionless and, quite frankly, dead on their own. The driver, however, is the soul. A ship only moves because a person is actively steering it. A rabbit only runs, and a human only speaks because a soul currently inhabits that physical vessel. When the driver steps out of the train stops. The train is dead, but the driver certainly isn't.
And the author points to several well-known phenomena to argue that these drivers simply swap vehicles to continue their missions. For instance, the text cites Western near-death research and numerous reported instances of reincarnation as loud, clear evidence that human souls outlast their physical bodies. It also highlights what it calls soul infusion phenomena. These are cases where seemingly normal people suddenly change voices or receive distinct messages from elsewhere. Think of James Roberts, who famously channeled an entity called Seth, or Neil Donald Walsh, the author of Conversations with God. According to Xuefeng's framework, these examples are proof that souls exist independently and can literally borrow or communicate through different human carriers.
So let's explore the characteristics of the soul. What exactly is this driver?
Now that we've firmly established the soul as the driver, we have to ask, what actually makes up a soul? What is its anatomy? Well, Xuefeng provides a very specific definition here. Souls are consciousnesses that contain psychic energy, but, and this is a huge but, they are not the psychic energy themselves.
The source describes psychic energy as the ultimate, overarching source of life found everywhere in the universe. Souls, by contrast, are just small, independent psychic energy regiments. Think of it like this. They are individual droplets containing the water of the ocean, but they are absolutely not the ocean itself.
The text goes even further, breaking the soul down into 8 very specific characteristics. Souls have a spiritual nature and are fully alive. They are completely non-material, meaning they're invisible, inaudible, untouchable, and immeasurable in our physical world. They are totally weightless. They are consciousnesses. Crucially, as we've seen from the framework so far, they can only function in the material world when they are attached to a carrier. Plus, they retain memory, possess regional properties, and amazingly, they can penetrate substances like beams or waves, just slipping right through the gaps in physical matter. This idea completely recontextualizes what we might consider a ghost or a spirit into a highly structured, wave-like entity.
Next up, the journey of reincarnation and the cosmic filter.
Okay, so after the driver leaves the broken vehicle, where exactly does this invisible, weightless consciousness go next? Get this, the source claims that souls aren't strictly limited to human or even animal bodies. They can inhabit inanimate objects. Seriously, the text specifically lists houses, trees, stones, and yes, even computers as potential carriers. But before you start worrying about reincarnating as a desktop PC, you should know that the destination isn't just random. Their next stop, whether that's back to Earth, down to hell, or up to heaven, depends entirely on the contents of their consciousness, which is strictly managed and arranged by Tao.
And how exactly does Tao manage this massive sorting process? Every single reincarnating soul must pass through a specific metaphysical structure called the continent for 3 realms lives to pass through. Basically, think of this as a giant cosmic filter. This filter features different layers of density. As a soul passes through, it is automatically sorted based on the contents of its consciousness, perfectly filtering it into its proper downward, horizontal, or upward space. It is a completely systematic, almost mechanical process of spiritual sorting.
Which brings us right to the ultimate takeaway. The text insists that it is entirely up to every single one of us to choose our own path through this cosmic filter, based entirely on how we cultivate our consciousness in this life. Remember, you are the driver. So the final question this explainer leaves us pondering today is simply this. When your driver eventually leaves its current vehicle, which direction will your consciousness travel? Downward, horizontally, or upward? Thank you so much for exploring this totally fascinating framework with us.